Welcome back to Global Outreach, your weekly journey through the currents of diplomacy, development, and global power. I'm Michael, with Emily, and today we're looking south, to a continent often spoken about but rarely listened to enough: Africa. For decades, Africa's role in global diplomacy was defined by dependence, aid, assistance, and external influence. But today, that narrative is shifting fast. From Nairobi to Abuja, from Addis Ababa to Accra, African nations are asserting agency, building alliances, and reshaping global diplomacy on their own terms. This is Africa's diplomatic renaissance, and it's rewriting what power looks like in the 21st century. For much of the post-colonial era, Africa's global presence was often reactive. The continent's diplomacy was shaped around the agendas of former colonial powers, global lenders, and international institutions. But over the last decade, that has changed. African leaders are no longer waiting for invitations to global tables. They're building their own platforms. Take the African Union, for instance. Once dismissed as symbolic, it now commands real weight in international mediation, from Sudan's crisis talks to peace efforts in the Sahel. And when the G20 formally welcomed the African Union as a permanent member this year, it wasn't just a diplomatic gesture. It was a recognition of economic potential, political maturity, and strategic necessity.
This renaissance isn't just about visibility, it's about rebalancing relationships. Africa's diplomats are crafting partnerships that reflect 21st century realities. China's Belt and Road Initiative made huge inroads, yes, but now African nations are negotiating better terms, local ownership, and debt transparency. Meanwhile, Europe is recalibrating. From renewable energy investments to digital trade, the EU is realizing Africa isn't a beneficiary, it's a business partner. And let's not forget intra-African diplomacy. The African Continental Free Trade Area, the largest free trade bloc in the world by membership, is quietly transforming how African states relate to each other. It's not just about goods crossing borders, it's about ideas, influence, and independence. Africa's diplomatic rise isn't all about summits and signatures. It's also powered by soft power, culture, technology, and youth. Nollywood films reach millions across continents. Afrobeats has globalized joy itself. African tech innovators are exporting fintech models that Silicon Valley is now imitating. And these cultural exports carry something powerful: confidence. They tell the world that Africa is not a passive player, it's a source of creativity, leadership, and identity. Even in the global digital age, African voices are finding resonance. The continent's diplomats, journalists, and thinkers are shaping debates on AI, sustainability, and governance, from Twitter Spaces to the UN General Assembly.
Of course, a renaissance doesn't mean perfection. Africa's diplomacy still faces tough challenges, from regional instability to governance gaps and external pressure. Global players often frame engagement through self-interest, competition between East and West, old powers versus new. But Africa's greatest diplomatic test will be unity, turning 54 national voices into a single continental narrative that can't be ignored. Still, there's momentum. You can feel it in the corridors of Addis Ababa, in ECOWAS negotiations, in Kenya's climate diplomacy, and in Ghana's push for African-led mediation in conflict zones. This generation of African diplomats is no longer asking for a seat. They're redesigning the table.
So, what does Africa's diplomatic renaissance really mean? It means power is no longer measured only by GDP or missiles, but by vision, connection, and resilience. Africa is speaking, and the world is finally listening. That's all for today's episode of Global Outreach. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend who still thinks Africa is the future. Because the truth is, the future is already here. We are Candlelight Media. See you next Monday, when we continue exploring how global voices are shaping tomorrow's world.